Hey you, welcome back. I am Nat from Nat's Numbers, also known as the Numerology Chick over on Instagram. And in this week's video, I am going to be answering your most pressing questions about 2021 and what numerology says about how to succeed in this brand new year. So if you want a more focused and organized forecast of this coming year, in the description box, I'll put a link to the latest Numerology Chick podcast episode where I go into 2021 and my top 3 tips to make sure that you succeed by leveraging this 5 universal year, okay? But in this video, it's gonna be like you and I are just chatting at a coffee shop. I'm gonna answer some of the questions that you guys posted over on Instagram. And I just want to say I appreciate all of you so much. You guys are deep, open-minded, inquisitive, self-reflective, and hilarious. So let's start with Randy's comment. Randy said, so just tell me the truth if 2021 is going to suck like 2020 did. And I got actually different versions of this kind of same inquiry or question. All right, so let's go back to basics, okay? This is really important. The timing cycles that I talk about on the Numerology Chick podcast, the monthly and yearly timing cycles that we collectively go through together, do not predict what's going to happen. What they do is they give us the wisdoms that we need to better traverse the territory that we're about to journey through. So if metaphorically we're about to traverse over an ocean, it would help to have a boat, right? Or if we're about to rock climb, it would maybe help to have a rope, okay? These timing cycles give us the insights and information that we need to be empowered, capable co-creators of our own life experience. And the reason why I don't believe that numerology or any other modality can predict the future is because of a spiritual truth that is incredibly enchanting, but also rather inconvenient. And that spiritual truth is that every single one of us is given free will. So the 0 point field, that's what I call God, my creator, that field of energy where we came from, it's so loving and so generous that it allows you to be the creator of your own life experience. It allows you to wake up every morning and decide what you want to do with your thoughts, your energy, your actions, and your decisions, right? But that means that every other person on the planet's given that same gift. So you can't control what your neighbor does, what your family members do, what your company does, your politicians, your government, right? We can influence and we can spearhead things, but at the end of the day, we cannot ultimately control what other people do as we are moving through this territory of 2021. Right? So if we're like rock climbing and you and I have our tools that we've extracted from these deeper wisdoms, and we find that we're making progress and we are growing and beautiful opportunities are coming to us, we cannot control whether the person over there is free climbing and falling and hurting themselves. And you can't ultimately control those decisions of other people. There's a lot of people that create really, really weird and wacky realities. There's a lot of people that are in their own worlds, and we can't control that. So that's why we can't predict the future. But the goal for me with like our community here is ultimately to use these forecasts to become honorable, self-responsible, accountable people, so that if there is any chance of us creating a transformation within our community or society, etc., that it'll come by virtue of us embodying these truths ourselves, right? And I'll talk about this in a later part of the video. Somebody asked about the darker side of the 5, and I'm going to talk about specifically what we can do to make sure that we're being a force of good in our own lives and in the world. But Randy, I feel you. I feel you. And so let's use this metaphor of extracting our own wisdoms to succeed. Let's use that looking at 2020. So 2020 was a 4 universal year. And the 4 is all about building a solid foundation for our future, right? So we don't have control over what our government did in terms of lockdown, in terms of quarantine, in terms of hospitals, in terms of, the virus, et cetera. Like we don't have control over so many of those things. But when you look back on 2020, And the tools to succeed in this past year were about building a solid foundation for your future. And that means the 4 is the pragmatist. It's about getting down into the basics and the foundations of your life. Like we're talking about the practicals, right? About your physical body, your finances, moving puzzle pieces around and make sure that, you know, you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. You know, when we're in the middle of a 4 cycle, it doesn't feel like we're building a solid foundation for our future, you know, because we're in the midst of using our hard work, our blood, sweat, and tears, and we're not yet seeing the fruits of our labor. But if you look back on 2020, chances are you will have seen that you worked hard and that you were encouraged, if not forced, to focus on the practical tangibles of your life, your physical body, your finances, your home life, you know, fill in the blank. We were forced to go down into the details and make sure that in our own personal lives, there weren't cracks in the foundation. If they were, we had to fill them in. We had to adjust, okay? So when we move into 2021, we need to embrace these tools of the 5. 2020 was about embracing the tools of practicality, hard work, focus, determination, not getting distracted. In this year of the 5, we have to learn how to be catalyzers of positive change in our own lives. We have to start to get outside of our comfort zone. We have to start to take risks for our dreams. And we have to be willing to entertain the possibility that our lives can get better and better, okay? And again, if you click the link in the description box, it'll take you to the podcast episode, but also my blog where I delineate the 3 top tips to make sure that you leverage this number 5, okay? Okay, so let's go to another question. Oh, and so Heather asked, that's a good one. She felt like she didn't really rebuild her foundation in 2020. So if you feel like you didn't do a stellar job in 2020, are you going to suffer for it in 2021? What I would say is so many of the clients I've been talking to have had that same doubt or thought, but when you actually look back, the things that you did, those 12 months of 2020, you actually did so many things that you will benefit from for the next 4 to 5 years. And you might not see it right now because, again, you're still knee deep in it, but I would really encourage you to actually sit down and write down the practical things that you did to deepen stability and strength in your life, okay? All right. Lisa asks, I keep hearing there will be major shifts in 2021. Is this true? So kind of to answer your question and Randy's coupled together, 2021 won't suck, and there will be major shifts for you in 2021 if you focus on being the empowered co-creator of your own life and use the tools of the 5 to create positive change and transformation, okay? Okay, and this was the question that I really wanted to address. Heavenly Antenna on Instagram. I'm not answering your full question, so maybe you can DM me and we can talk some more about it. But the latter part of her question is, can you speak about the dark side of the 5? And I think this is really, really important because, the goal would be, right, if everybody was aware of this timing cycle of the 5 universal year, that this is a time to be positive catalyzers of change and transformation and growth and expansion in our own lives. If everybody rose into the higher function of the 5, we would experience unprecedented positive change, growth, transformation, incredible opportunities, incredible outside the box solutions. Collectively, we would experience that collectively if like all of us were in that space, right? And so our job in this community is, again, we can't control what other people do, but our job would then be to make sure that we are being self-accountable and self-responsible to knowing the distinction between the higher function of the 5, the 2021 universal year, or the lower function of the 5, okay? So let's talk about the lower function, okay? So the lower function of the 5, the lower function that we might dip into in 2021 is falling prey to drama, wasting our energy on conflict and artificial or superficial change, okay? So if you have a 5 in your chart, you already know what I'm talking about. What do I mean by artificial or superficial change? Like, let's say, for instance, you're lonely and you are yearning for love and intimacy in your life. What sometimes happens with the 5 is that you will keep going back to an ex because you are addicted to the high of being wanted, being desired, and then the high of breaking up, and then the high of getting back together, right? And so you get so addicted to the drama because it gives you the illusion that something is changing in your life because something is moving, something's happening, but it's an illusion, right? Like, you look back at your life, you look back at, like, you know, the last 3 months of the last year of being addicted to that cycle of drama, of chaos, because you're bored, because you're distracted, because you don't believe in yourself is ultimately what it comes down to. That true transformation and true change can't happen. Another example of this would be road rage. So if you've ever watched those YouTube compilations of people that, like, just get in these crazy conflicts on the freeway or something, that's totally the lower function of the 5, right? So the lower function of the 5 is focusing on things that actually, like, don't really matter. And you could have diffused a situation and moved on with your day and used the next 10 hours of your day to make positive change, to feed your dreams, to enact new habits that can transform your body, your mind, your business, your relationships. But instead of doing that, you put your energy into something that gives you that initial high, that you are confronting something, changing something, that there's like life that happens from engaging in drama, right? And so you see that, like, I'll watch these road rage videos with my husband, who loves them. He, like, loves them, and I'm like, I see in the first 5 seconds of this issue that it could have been completely resolved. You know, it could have been completely diffused, and those people could have then gone on to have an amazing, wonderful day, but they don't, right? They don't, because they're caught up in the illusion of artificial, superficial change, okay? So these are all the lower functions of the 5. Getting caught up in drama, getting caught up in fighting somebody that has a view that you don't like, right? Getting caught up in feeding the energy that you want to excommunicate from your life. The higher function of the 5, and that's what the 3 tips in the podcast forecast talk about. The higher function of the 5 is where we put our energy into lasting, sustainable change and transformation. It's where we take responsibility for our own lives and for putting the very little time that we have on this planet and that we have in this year of 2021, putting as much energy as possible into the things that we can change, into the positive movement that we can catalyze, right? So this is where we get uncomfortable, not to fight with people or to waste our energy on things that really don't matter, but we get uncomfortable for our goals. We get outside our comfort zone for things that are going to actually increase the money in our pocketbook, that are actually going to transform our body or our level of health, that we get uncomfortable and get outside our comfort zone for the things that are going to help us be impactful in our purpose or in our great mission, in the world, right? Like trolls on the internet, like people that have time to go around and write negative comments about other people, like that is another example of the lower function of the 5. It's like if people put as much energy into improving their own lives, changing their own daily habits to actually change the trajectory of their own destiny, you wouldn't even have time to comment on someone else's life, you know? So will major shifts happen in 2021? Yes. If you rise into the higher function of the 5, yes. No matter what is happening in the world, with your government, with lockdown, opening up or not, you can experience positive change, excitement, growth, up-leveling in your life if you are willing to do this work of rising into the higher function of the 5. So thank you so much for that question on the darker side of the 5, because I think that that's a really good, it's good to be aware of the shadow. Okay, guys, I'm already at 16 minutes. Gee whiz. I do want to comment really quick. Wendy was asking that she's looking for peace and freedom in 2021, and I know that's kind of very similar to some of the other stuff that I've covered, but I think peace is a big one, and I don't know if this is going to comfort you, probably won't, but 2021 isn't going to be peaceful. And I want you to know that. Like, I don't want you to think that you have to wait for the world to be in a state of peace and harmony for you to finally be okay, you know? I think that no matter where we're at collectively, like even times in the United States when we've been economically growing and there hasn't been a lot of like conflict or major wars or something like that, there's other countries on the planet where there's genocide happening, right? Like, again, timing cycles don't predict what's going to happen. Instead, what they do is they give us the gifts of how to best thrive in the territory that we are traversing, right? So that's why there could be horrible things happening in one country and not another, because we have free will collectively, as communities and societies, to do with the energy what we want, okay? So if you want peace in 2021, accept that you can't control what's going on out there, okay? And come back to that podcast forecast, episode 80 of the Numerology Chick podcast. Go to the blog where I delineate steps or tips 1 through 3 and have that be your North Star. Because if all that you and I did was be self-responsible, honorable individuals who focus on our own positive change, growth, and transformation in our lives, focus on being in the higher function of the 5, by the end of this year, we will have transformed. There will have been incredible, unprecedented, positive change, metamorphosis, and growth. Okay, guys, if you have more questions on this new year, I can always do a follow-up video as well, so comment below. And if you enjoyed this more like informal kind of format, also let me know, because I've been doing kind of like formal videos and things like that, but this is more conversational. So if you like it, comment and let me know. Okay, guys, bye.